What's up, beautiful soul, child of God, fellow athlete? Welcome and welcome back to the channel today. I am Y311H. We are about to react to something deep, powerful, and maybe even a little bit surprising. But first, we have to set our hearts and minds straight by word of wisdom from the guide of life. Let's anchor ourselves in truth with words from the book of Luke, chapter 10 and verse 19. Hear what it says. I have given you authority to trample on snakes and scorpions and to overcome all the power of the enemy. Nothing will harm you. However, do not rejoice that the spirits submit to you, but rejoice that your names are written in heaven. That is what the book tells us today. Let's say a short quick prayer before we get to take a look at the incredible videos we have. Thank you, Father, for this beautiful day. Thank you for your goodness, kindness, and love, Father. Thank you for your abundant mercies in our lives, dear Lord. We give you glory. Today we come before you in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, together with this precious pure Father. We pray that you may guide us, cover us, and protect us till the end of this video. As we react to the videos you have, spreading love and peace, Father. Intervene in these viewers' lives. Do great things for them, Father, and bless them abundantly. In your holy name, Jesus Christ, we do pray, trusting and believing. Amen. Let's dive in, child of God.
You can't even make this shit up. How does one shit on the couch? I get up and he's scared. He gets off the couch, does a spin move, and shits on my wall. I know you fucking lying right now.
Did you ever notice that instead of putting actual diversity into a cast, a lot of the time they would just cast all white people and give them different hair colors? That's not diversity. If there are 3 women in a friend group on TV, there will often be a blonde, a brunette, and a redhead. A blonde, a brunette, and a redhead. A blonde, a brunette, and a redhead. You've got a blonde, you've got a brunette, and you've got a redhead. A blonde, a brunette, and a redhead. Blonde, brunette, and a redhead. Blonde, brunette, and a redhead. A blonde, brunette, and a redhead. A blonde, brunette, and a redhead. A blonde, brunette, and a redhead. They're not even human, but they're still a blonde, a brunette, and a redhead. A blonde, brunette, and a redhead. And oh look, a blonde, a brunette, and a redhead. It works for groups of 4 too. 2 blondes, a brunette, and a redhead. 2 blondes, a brunette, and a redhead. And 2 blondes, a brunette, and a redhead. If there are people of color in the group, they will still be outnumbered by the white people. You got a non-white brunette, a blonde, and a redhead. A non-white brunette, a blonde, and a redhead. A non-white brunette, a blonde, and a redhead. And a non-white brunette, a blonde, and a redhead. Oh look, and a non-white brunette, and a blonde, and a redhead. Here you've got a blonde, a brunette, a redhead, and a non-white person. A blonde, a brunette, and a redhead, and a non-white person. A blonde, a brunette, and a redhead, and a non-white person. 1 Latina and 2 white girls with different hair colors. 1 Asian and 2 white girls with different hair colors. 1 black woman and 3 white women with different hair colors. 1 Latina and 3 white women with different hair colors. 1 Asian girl and 3 white girls with different hair colors. A Latina and a black girl and 2 white girls with different hair colors. A black girl, an Asian girl, and 2 white girls with different hair colors. A black girl, an Asian girl, and 2 white girls with different hair colors. A black girl, an Asian girl, and 2 white girls with different hair colors. A Latina, a black girl, and 3 white girls with different hair colors. And now you've got a black girl, an Asian girl, and 5 white girls with different hair colors, at least one of each, blonde, brunette, and redhead. You've got a blonde, a brunette, a redhead, and a non-white person. A blonde, a brunette, a redhead, 3 white guys, and 1 non-white person. A blonde, a brunette, 3 white guys, and 1 non-white person. A brown person, a black person, 2 white people, and 1 Asian person. In the rare occasions where they do have 2 members of the same racial group, one will be more light-skinned than the other or have a different hair color. I mean, even The Good Place, which we consider to be very diverse, has 3 times as many white people in the main cast as any other race represented. A show isn't necessarily bad if it's not diverse, but it would probably be better if it was, right? And when a show has too much diversity, like an almost all black cast, it's considered a black show. It's not considered mainstream. And that's a whole other fucking problem that I can't even get into in this video.
Talk about what happens when a soul comes up to the point of birth. The agreement's been made, and maybe a soul just chooses at the more toward the last minute, I don't want to do this. I've changed my mind.
The soul chooses incarnations when they know they will come to fruition.
Does it ever happen that a soul simply backs out and you have more of a stillborn situation?
Soul isn't in that body.
Not yet, but if it chooses not to occupy it, and the vehicle, the baby, simply dies away, is there anything else we need to know about that for anyone who's experienced something like
So
this?
there's a perception that there's a soul in a body at conception.
No.
But the soul enters at different times of the body.
Mm-hmm.
And if it knows that that fetus, that infant, will not have a full life, the soul will not enter.
Mm-hmm.
However, the parents of that infant have a learning within that experience. Yes?
Yes. And what happens then in kind of a knocked-on effect of that a little later, if a soul does choose to incarnate through a body, and then maybe has what's called sudden death syndrome, where sudden infant death, where they're lying in their crib, they stop breathing, and they die. There didn't appear to be anything wrong with them. They just leave the body. What's
That too is
happening?
a lesson to be learned for those who are still living.
Mm-hmm.
So know this, because the body is small doesn't mean the soul is.
Right.
The soul is larger than the physical body, much more powerful and wise. So that soul that comes and leaves so early on can be a master teacher for those left behind from the experience of that.
Another reason why we are further away than ever from World War III is because Russia and China are terrified by how the US conducted their attack. Remember, while Iran has some radar left, Russia and China have a great deal of them, and none of those radars were able to pick up 7 American B-2 bombers that flew undetected for 18 hours, refueling in midair, and then they launched an assault successfully against a hardened, well-fortified target. This means for all of Russia and China's bluster, if the United States wanted to go into those countries and drop a very powerful bomb, they would be able to do it undetected, uninterrupted. Iran did not even have a chance to launch any fighter jets because they had no idea that these bombers even went into Iranian airspace. There were also 125 other U.S. military aircraft, and there were American submarines that actually launched Tomahawk missiles to also soften up the targets. Quoting from the Reuters article, the Iranians were unable to get off a single round, meaning bullet, at the American aircraft, and were caught completely flat-footed. And remember, Iran's radar systems were primarily Russian, which is another humiliating loss of military prestige for Russia. I made a post the other day about how Russia is losing military contracts left and right because their air defense systems and overall gear is subpar compared to what the West makes. You should watch it. The name of this operation was Midnight Hammer, and it was the world's largest B-2 strike in history. I highly suggest you look at all of the military assets used in this operation. You should pause to read this or just go to the original site because it's quite impressive. And to all the people from countries with third or fourth rate militaries who were making fun of our American soldiers who couldn't march well, it's true, we don't march well because we actually do our job working with military equipment instead of trying to look all parade fancy for our people. But even though Russia and China are terrified of what America is capable of, that doesn't mean there won't be any recourse from Iran. A few hours ago, it came out that Iran-backed militias were gearing up to target American bases in Iraq and possibly Syria. And now we're hearing reports that 1,300 pounds or 600 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium, which is primarily used for nuclear weapons, was somehow shifted from the Fordow site. But I'm very skeptical about that claim for a few reasons. One, Iran may not want to look like they've been completely cooked, so they're trying to save face. But if this is true, then this is the fault of Iran's opponent, because Iran's opponent had sleeper cells that so heavily infiltrated the Iranian military, they would have known that this material was going to be moved. And if they actually allowed it to happen or didn't destroy it at another location, that's because they want to drag America further into this conflict, which is a mistake. Right now, there is no official declaration of war against Iran by the United States, because technically only Congress has the power to do that. America did the one thing that Iran's opponent could not do, We shouldn't have any more of a role in this war unless, of course, Iran seeks to escalate against the United States and try to fire on American military personnel. And, of course, shooting down any ballistic missiles and drones that Iran fires into their enemy's territory. Now, another form of recourse that Iran has suggested 1 week before the U.S. attacked them was that Iran would wake up sleeper cells in the United States and other parts of the world to wreak havoc. And that is something we do have to keep our eyes out open for, because even though none of these countries stand a chance against us militarily, these lone wolf agents may be able to do a little bit of domestic damage just to scare the overall population. But I am not 100% sold on this sleeper cell idea, just because if any act of terror happens on U.S. soil and it could be traced back to Iran, then America's president will literally try to make Iran great again. A successful act of terror conducted against the United States would not make Trump look bad, even though it looks that way on paper. It would unite this country. It would galvanize us to completely obliterate Iran and any proxy group associated with it. The U.S. has been able to conduct a great deal of damage, and we are not even unified. Not one bit compared to where we were on September 12th. 2001. There's a reason why I said that day. But what about the multiple countries that are prepped to provide Iran nuclear weapons following these strikes? That was said by Russia's former president, Medvedev, who is just a Putin puppet. There has been no confirmed report of any country making such an offer, and if it did, that would be in violation of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Agreement, and there would be a coalition of countries that would make such a sale impossible. If you're curious about Iran closing the Strait of Hormuz, that has not happened yet, and they don't really have the capacity to do it now that we're involved in that war. Oil's been trading roughly between $72 to $76 a barrel for the past few days. If the Strait of Hormuz was closed, it would be at, 85, 90, 100. But that'd be temporary because the U.S. would destroy the blockade or whatever mining effort was made.
What are sleeper cells? I spent 13 years in military intelligence. Specifically, I was in human intelligence, so I'm very familiar with sleeper cells. Now, I think that most people understand the basic concept. These are Iranian agents living here in America that are just waiting for the word to attack us. However, I don't think enough people have thought through what that looks like. It's not just somebody hiding out in a house waiting for the word to go attack us or put a bomb somewhere. These are people who have been living here any number of years, who have integrated themselves into our communities, into churches, into synagogues, into mosques, into our community, our community centers, and our workplaces. And I don't just mean the janitor who's mopping the floor waiting for the word. It could be the CEO, the CFO. It could be the admin. It could be the middle management. It could be anybody in our workplace. It could be anybody in our government, right? We don't know what a sleeper agent looks like. Now, the FBI is going to tell you they know who these people are, and they don't. If they knew who they were, if we definitively knew that's a sleeper agent, we would get them out. Now, there's some tracking that happens to be able to exploit the cell, but that's a different conversation. But we don't know who they are. Just understand that. Now, do I necessarily believe that there's 100% sleeper agents that are going to be activated by Iran because CBS got this from a source? No, I don't know that to be true. Now, what I do know to be true is there's sleeper agents from Iran in America. Whether or not they activate them, I don't know. But let me give you my analysis. The number one way to attack America from the inside, to attack our homeland, is through sleeper agents. Because the reason we never get attacked is logistically it's a nightmare to attack America. Now, you might think an attack means a bomb. You might think an attack means, some big, immaculate thing. It could be any sort of attack. It could be attacking our electric grid. It could be attacking our internet, our networks. It could be any type of cyber attack. It could be, releasing all of our information out to the world to compromise Americans. Listen, an attack looks like all kinds of different ways, not just a bomb somewhere. It could be an attack on our military assets and targets, because sleeper agents could also be in our military. But again, this could also just be a psychological ploy by Iran to create discord and panic amongst the American people. But either way, the feeling of unsurety that you're feeling right now, the feeling of being unsafe that you're feeling right now, Our president did that. Donald Trump did that. And I want to remind you, he did it for no good goddamn reason at all.
You gotta go up the stairs. Come on. Go. No, not that way. Look right there. Jesus Christ. Come on, Snipe. Come on, right there. Good boy. Right there. Right there. Oh, Jesus Christ. Come on. Right there. Oh, Lord, Snipe. Sniper, come on. Come on. Yeah, good. Go. Come on. Right there. Go. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come, Snipe. Jesus. Come on.
If you were born via a sperm donor, listen up, you might be about to inherit a whole heck of a lot of money. Pavel Durov, the founder of Telegram, the encrypted app, just told a French publication that he will divide his $17 billion net worth among his children. That would be 6 of them conceived naturally, and more than 100 children in 12 countries conceived with him as the sperm donor. He explains, quote, "They're all my children, and they all have the same rights. There is a catch."
What is the catch?
Durov said his children will not have access to the money until June 19th, 2055. That is 30 years from yesterday when he did the interview. So he explains on this point, he wants them to live a normal life like normal people, build themselves up alone, trust themselves, be able to create, and not be dependent on a bank account. But come on.
Yeah, okay. Do you remember that one guy who inherited his aunt's estate? And as he was going through all of her things, he actually busted 2 of the biggest Mandela effects that we have. Unfortunately, his account has been banned here on TikTok, but I was able to get 2 screenshots from one of his videos. So those of us that grew up with the Bernstein Bears, or the Berenstein Bears, as it stands today, it's the Berenstain Bears. So this is the dude that inherited his aunt's estate, and in the estate, he found an old book of the Berenstein Bears. Like, here's an actual copy for what we remember. But that's not the only one. So there's a movie starring Shaq called Kazam, which you can go download it right now. But then we all know who Sinbad is, right? And we all remember him from a movie called Kazam, where he was a genie. And it simply does not exist anywhere. Except, in the estate, he found a copy. This says Shazam, and there's Sinbad. Because the Berenstain Bears never existed in my reality. It was always the Berenstein Bears. And I remember Shazam with Sinbad. I'm not sure if this is enough proof to bust both Mandela effects. I want to know what you think.
Ross, this has been an honor. I have one final question before you go. Is there anything? Joe Rogan just talked about this. Everybody talks about this amazing bombshell thing that you reported on. You know what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
This UFO possibly found in that they needed to build a bunker around that was like, a mile plus long. Anything you can say about it?
I do not resile from saying what I've said previously, which is that there is a buried, or at least built upon, UFO that was too big to move.
And that's it.
Part of the reason it's actually, it's weird just how angry people get because I can't reveal it. And there seems to be this view in UAP social commentary that I'm obliged to reveal everything.
No.
And if I don't reveal everything, then I'm being irresponsible and I'm not helping the disclosure cause. And one of the things that was steeped into me as a journalist, I've been privy because people started leaking to me things that they probably shouldn't have done, to secrets where, including from America, I should not have them. And I've been shocked that I've had these things in my hand and I've gone, holy hell. And in some cases, I've burnt them.
Wow.
But the worst one for me was when I covered I was made aware that Australia was deploying special forces troops into the Iraq desert, probably 3 weeks before the war started. And a friendly special forces operator told me that this was happening. And I initially got really excited. And I actually went and spoke to an editor about it and said, look, I've got this story. I mean, they're deploying SAS troops. We're going in, and, we're going to be in the Western Desert. And then we kind of looked at each other and went, nah. and I spoke later on. I did a story with the Australian SAS about what they'd done in the Western Desert. And I asked one of the guys who'd been there, if I'd revealed that, what would have happened? And he said, we would have been killed.
Oh my God. Well, there you go.
And so in the case of the buried UFO,
Mm-hmm.
I can't reveal, because if I reveal why I say this, it would compromise it. It's a very sensitive place.
Mm-hmm.
That should be enough of a guide for you.
Mm-hmm.
And to reveal the full extent of what I know would compromise the lives of young men and women who are doing good things for America, completely separate from the UAP program, and they're probably oblivious to what's sitting downstairs.
That's as valid a reason as ever. And it also, you know, to argue on your behalf against the people that say that's bad for disclosure, you're going to torpedo your relationships. If
Absolutely.
you know, are speaking to somebody, they're never going to speak to you again if you reveal something that you promised not to. So,
because I actually take it as a journalistic responsibility not to reveal something if it's going to compromise the safety of your country or my country.
Absolutely.
And you know, I lie in bed at night worried about how dangerous things are at the moment. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Israel launched a preemptive attack on Iran in the next few weeks.
I wouldn't either. The world's in a freaky place. And I think, I don't know if you have this kind of mind dialectic around the UFO issue, but I think about that. And I'm like, oh, maybe UFOs don't matter. The world's going to blow up. And then I say, well, if the world's going to blow up, if there were ever a time to care about UFOs and throw a Hail Mary, it would be now.
Well, one of the things I asked somebody very recently was, is there some kind of super weapon that we've got stashed away? Because I've heard this rumor, and look, to be honest with you, it's only rumor. It's people who probably wouldn't really know for sure, but they've told me secondhand stuff suggesting that the US has developed what are called scalar weapons.
Well, you heard the Michael Kratsius statement.
But we are capable of so much more. Our technologies permit us to manipulate time and space. They leave distance annihilated.
Which, you know, he's in an official position, and he's...
And I know, and Trump keeps on hinting that the US has a weapon, a super weapon.
That's right.
That they haven't revealed yet. Yeah. But notice, Putin has said exactly the same thing. And I have been told that the Russians have developed extraordinary weaponry. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if one of the primary reasons for the secrecy is because each nation thinks that they have an advantage with scalar weapons, but the reality is none of them do.
Right. Oh, wow. That's scary that there's some Sub-Rosa Manhattan Project 2.0 going on.
Oh, I'm sure there's a Manhattan Project 2.0 going.
Well, you have these rumors that you had Kammlerstab in Nazi Germany where they were doing kind of black world nuclear stuff.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I'm sorry, we were trying to finish, but I'll just give you this little tip.
We talk forever, yeah.
There's a friend of mine who speaks to a lot of astronauts and to people who supervised astronauts.
Okay.
And one story that came up was that in the early days of Glasnost, when Russia and America were kind of friends again, Russia imparted to America that it was in possession of a crashed craft, and there was an astronaut, a known astronaut, still alive, deployed to go and, actually I don't know if he's still alive, to go and assist in the retrieval. And a lot has changed in the last, 25 years, since 30 years since the end of the Cold War. 35 years. And it's really interesting because I suspect that there has been collaboration in the distant past between the Americans and the Russians, and that it's suited each side to keep quiet about the fact that there is this Sub-Rosa Manhattan Project going on where essentially there's a Cold War. There's a battle for possession of and development of non-human technology, and I'm in no doubt whatsoever that that's happening.
Well, that's an amazing note to end on, which is let's hope disclosure happens and these psionic viewers are correct before the world blows up.
Me too.
Ross, this is an honor, man. It's a long time coming for me, and it's amazing to hear all your vast knowledge and all this stuff, and pray for your continued productivity because you're really doing the Lord's work.
Well, vice versa, Jesse. I love your show, and there's plenty of room there for both of us.
Why is Iran prohibited from developing a nuclear weapon when Israel, widely believed to possess them, faces no formal consequences? Why are Japan and Germany two of the world's most advanced nations without nuclear weapons capability when North Korea conducts bomb tests? Well, the answer takes us back to the aftermath of the Cuban Missile Crisis and Cold War brinkmanship, the closest that the world has ever been to that horror of direct nuclear confrontation. So eventually, 191 countries signed up to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, which came into force in 1970. And it rested on 3 pillars: that non-nuclear states would not acquire nuclear weapons, 2, that states with them would pursue disarmament in good faith, and 3, that all could access civilian nuclear energy pending international inspection. 5 states were recognised as official nuclear powers: the USA, the USSR, the UK, France and China. And that is because they tested their weapons before 1967, and they weren't required to disarm immediately, just to negotiate disarmament. But in practice, they kept their arsenals and modernised them. Some completely rejected the deal. India and Pakistan never signed up, and they built their own arsenals. Israel declined to join, and they are widely believed to have an undeclared arsenal. And North Korea did sign up, withdrew, and then tested its first nuclear bomb in 2006. And then there's Iran, a full member of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, meaning that it cannot develop nuclear weapons under international law. Then, of course, it signed up to the JCPOA, the Iran deal, and in return for reduced sanctions would limit its enrichment program. But that collapsed when the US withdrew. So in response to US and Israeli strikes, Tehran has floated the idea of pulling out of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty altogether. So if this system seems porous, it's because it is. And at its centre is the concept of mutually assured destruction. The idea that if 2 rational actors can annihilate each other, that neither will strike first. And this depends on a stable and predictable regime. So to Western powers, Iran is considered to be ideologically unstable and hostile to the international order. So that wouldn't be congruent with this nuclear deterrence doctrine. So you see countries like North Korea able to retain their arsenals because now it's too dangerous to confront them. So in answer to the question, who gets nuclear weapons? It's those who had them before the rules were written, those protected by powerful alliances or who are now too dangerous to confront, or those who are deemed stable, strategic, and aligned enough with the international order to be trusted with them.
This might upset some of you husbands, but here's the truth. When you married your wife, she didn't marry into your family. You created a new family with her. She and the kids you have with her, that's your new family. Your parents and siblings and uncles and aunts and grandparents, they become relatives. Now, it doesn't mean you reject them and you don't see them again. It means your wife becomes your new priority. She gets most of your love, loyalty, time, energy, attention, and devotion. It means you guys create your own life, make your own traditions, make your own decisions, do what you guys want to do more than what your parents want you to do. It means your wife becomes the person you're closest to, and your parents, they take the place of good, dear friends on the condition that they're emotionally healthy and that they don't put stress on your marriage or disrespect your wife. Guys, I promise you, you cannot have a healthy, happy marriage if you're still acting like your family of origin comes first. Outside of an extramarital affair, nothing will destroy your marriage faster.